Last week's episode of So I'm a Spider, So What left us off on a huge cliffhanger with a lot of questions that, even after today's episode, are still looming. What happened with Ariel using abyss magic on Kumiko? Did Julius, baby chicken nugget boy, did he come to save our girl Kumiko? Did Kumiko use a after image? Was she able to get away? All these questions still need to be answered. And the main question that is going to need to be answered for me is, if Kumiko didn't get away, did that abyss magic destroy the primary body of Kumiko? And is all that's left over is the artist formerly known as Body Kumiko. We just need to know what ends up happening. And even after watching this episode, we didn't get that answer yet. But we know that next episode is called So I'm Still a Spider, So What? So that's going to introduce a lot of questions, which we'll talk about at the end. But with this episode specifically, we didn't get any Kumiko action, and I know how a lot of the community feels about when Kumiko is missing during an episode, when the spider is missing during an episode. But really, one of the things that I have said all season, for the first core and the second one, is even when Kumiko is missing during these episodes, this is just personal, my opinion, I am not missing Kumiko because of all the gaps that are filled and all of the shoes that are worn. They're able to wear the shoes of holding up the anime during these episodes. This episode was obviously definitely focused on the latter half of last episode, which is the fight between Hugo and between Shun. And it honestly ended up turning into Sophia versus everybody, which was awesome to see because Sophia, outside of Kumiko herself, Sophia is like my favorite character of the anime. I mean, she's a vampire. She's OP. She has a really cool backstory. She used to be the one that everybody was scared of and nobody wanted to be friends with in school. I really love her backstory. I love who she is as a character, and it helps that she's a definitive snack. So all of this, and she's a vampire, of course. But all of this comes into play. So regardless, the episode again was very revolved around Shun and Hugo's fight. Their fight persists, and one of the things that I noticed so much about Shun specifically, that has begun to irk me over the last, I don't know, half dozen episodes or so is, he was kind of the most tropey character, obviously, the hero, and he's the hero in another world, blah blah blah, right? So obviously he had those things to carry with him, but regardless, I thought that he was still a really interesting character. But over the last half dozen episodes or so, he has mentioned his brother Julius more times than Batman mentions his parents died, and that just bothers me so much. It's like and I don't know if it's just the writing of his character, regardless, but that's who he is. Like they have made him this as a character that he always has to reminisce and think about his brother. Everything that he's doing is because what his brother have done. You know what I mean? He never really thinks for himself, and that translates into who he is as a character. Now, like I said, during the episode, it was about Shun and Hugo's fight. Hugo basically gets taken off the map of importance, because Sophia comes in and basically says, like, yeah, you were a toy, you were a ploy, you were just being used to fill this gap of time, and your use has your cup has filled, right? You're done. All your use is done, and Hugo gets hella mad. Hugo gets hella mad, and Sophia takes him out. I think she kicks him or something like that, but she takes him out of the picture. And then it becomes Sophia versus Shun. But even right before that happened, like Shun came in, and he can never go for like the vital points. When even with like Hugo, he did have a couple opportunities to, like, take him out. And like the frustrating thing about Shun right now is, like, this is war. You have people who they will legitimately kill you. Maybe not Sophia because they kind of see him as like a plaything at the moment. Like he's not really a threat to them. But Hugo specifically, like, he was coming to kill you 1,000,000%. This boy would kill you if he had the opportunity. It's just your defenses are pretty good. But when he can go in for the kill, like, you need to do that, because if you leave somebody who's just so infatuated with revenge and was just so like, I mean, he's gone. You know what I mean? He's long gone. He's irredeemable. This is war. It's to kill or be killed. You know what I mean? And the fact that he doesn't realize that is a frustrating thing to watch. But as we continue on, Sophia ended up taking on Shun and Katya and Faye, and she ended up taking on Oka. She ended up taking all of them on, and that battle went on for a while until they realized that they weren't going to be able to take on Faye, or no, they weren't going to be able to take on Sophia. But Faye finally stepped up and was like, she was basically watching on the sidelines as Shun was giving it his all, Katya gave it her all. And, eventually she realized, like, they were not going to win. So she talked about, surrendering to save their lives and talked about boys' pride and stuff. And Sophia got it. And I thought that was really cool of Faye to kind of notice that. Right before they can do that, the other two adventurers, the other two reincarnation adventurers, they were able to defeat the butler. But it's really just an after image or a replication of himself, which we need to know more about the butler. How did he get to where he is now? He's one of the demon generals as well, which is dope AF. Obviously along with Sophia, but there's a couple of things that they have said during the episodes. Like Sophia had told him, like, yo, you've been protecting me all this time. So I'm wondering, as far as the butler's backstory goes, is obviously he wasn't always this badass demon vampire. So how did he get there? Was he really this the whole time? Is he really Sophia's daddy? Or did Sophia end up turning him into a vampire because maybe he was going to die or something happened in the past as she turned him into what he is now? There's so many different avenues that I can go, and we need to get those questions answered. Will it be answered in episode 24? I highly, highly doubt it, but I would love to get those answers soon because I want to know more. Like, honestly, give me 12 episodes focused on Sophia. But regardless, back to it. So, they defeat the butler, and the adventurers come in, and they're like, we're going to take one final stand. That gets Shun all fired up. He's like, we're just going to go. We're going to do it. We're never gonna give up, never going to surrender. You know what I mean? And they're like, let's go. Right before that can happen, our boy Kyoya comes in, which, again, I told you guys during the reaction video. If you haven't seen our reaction video, go check it out. But during the reaction video before that started, I was like, yo, I bet green hair boy's Kyoya, because they already showed us Kasuma or Kasumi or whatever the guy's name was, but the ninja boy. The only other one left was Kyoya, which, Shun keeps fantasizing about, because I guess it was his best friend. You know what I mean? So obviously he has this high concern for him. But Kyoya drops in from the sky, drop kicks the two adventurer reincarnations. He takes them out, eats them, and deletes them. And then he begins, telling Shun about, the truth, which is the elves are pieces of crap. And, that leads to some confusion with Shun. But before they can really delve into that conversation, the elves come in and attack. And because the elves come in and attack, it causes Sophia and Kyoya to go on the defensive. They take down some elves. The elves are trying to take Shun back to go fight Ariel, the demon lord, because he has the hero tags. He's really the only one who could really do it. And they come across like a standoff, before that they can make it back. And Sophia and Kyoya are attacked with Shun yelling, Kyoya! So we know that there's still some affinity for his best friend there. And if anybody can get him to come over to the demon side, or just it's not even about, come over to the demon side of the church. It's just fight for the right thing. If anybody can get him to fight for the right thing, which I really feel like the demons, even the way that they're going about it might not be the right way, but they're doing the right thing because they're fighting for the world not to end, because they know the elves are going to be part of making that happen. So if anybody can get him over to the right side, I think it'll be Kyoya, and I really hope that ends up happening, because I would love to see that versus anything else happen. A couple other things to note is, the elves have technology. Apparently Potimus, but Mr. Potias, apparently they got like hella technology. They got screens, they got war machines, they got tanks, they got elf Gundam looking things. Like, they have some serious technology in this world. And how? The only thing that I could really think about is, maybe for some odd reason, maybe Potimus, maybe Mr. Potias, maybe he was a reincarnation in the past, and maybe he brought on that knowledge to where he is now, and maybe that's why he's so confident in his abilities. am not really sure. We need to know more about that. But obviously, the elves have more than just magic. They have this really great magic. They have hella technology too. So that's gonna be interesting. And the magic didn't really seem to work against that technology because Sophia tried. So it's gonna be really interesting. Obviously, Sophia and Kyoya, they're not gonna die. They're gonna be able to get out of it. But I want to know more about like what the f. Also, I want to see on what's gonna end up happening with Shun. Is he gonna be enlightened? And obviously, Ariel and Kumiko the White are heading towards them, or heading towards like the elf base, because they're gonna go try and kill Potimus. And we know at some point Shun and them are gonna intersect, and hopefully they can have that conversation with Shun as well. Even though we know Shun's gonna try to strike first because he's like, "Oh, Julius Sama, you killed him." So we know that he's gonna try and do that first, like an idiot. So will he die before he learns the truth, before he's enlightened? Who knows? I think Kumiko will take him out, but we'll see what ends up happening next episode. But overall, my God, what a great episode. This was the Sophia special. I love seeing all of Sophia, and I love the screen time that she got this episode. Even though it wasn't the most well animated episode in the world, there was still some, there's some snickers that you did. Like you see something animated, you're like, "Ugh, yeah, it's great." It's like, oh, it's pretty bad a little bit, but overall, still really enjoyable episode. I love getting the Sophia special. Put me in the Sophia sandwich. Do it up. But I love watching it. This was a great episode. My only critique is that we only have one episode left to really tie everything up, and there's still so many loose ends out there that is highly debatable and highly doubtful that the episode 24 is going to be able to do that for us. We're going to need a season 2, and I am here for it, but I don't want to be waiting years for it. But regardless, next week is the last episode, guys. Last episode we get to spend together. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. Make sure you guys come back for next week. And let's see what happens. Thank you guys for joining. If you want to see our full reaction, click here. If you want to see another video, click there. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace out, guys.